2025 is a hell of a year to be a James Bond fan, because since No Time to Die came out, the last few years in the world of Bond have kind of felt like this.
Can you go faster?
We don't need to go faster.
Whereas 2025 so far has felt more like this. Because after years of uncertainty about the future of our favourite secret agent, the last 4 months or so have been the feast that follows the famine, and last week's announcement that Denis Villeneuve has been confirmed as the director of Bond 26 was the pièce de résistance. And Villeneuve's name has been circulating the Bond rumour mill for a little while now, going all the way back to 2015 when he first publicly expressed an interest in directing Bond. In fact, he once even kind of hinted that the only reason he didn't throw his hat in the ring for No Time to Die was because he wanted to focus on Dune, so his interest in Bond is nothing new.
I would deeply love to one day make a James Bond movie. It's a character that I've been with, like everybody, since my childhood, and it's like I have like massive affection for Bond.
But talk of Villeneuve directing Bond 26 really started picking up steam when he was asked about his post-Dune plans, and he said, "I have 4 projects on the table currently. One of them is a secret project that I cannot talk about right now, but that needs to see the light of day quite quickly. Maybe Bond 26 wasn't that secret project, maybe it was, but as of last Thursday, that question has become as irrelevant as a superfluous papilla."
A what? A mammary gland. A third nipple, son.
So what do I think of this choice? Well, to put it simply,
I have no objections.
Denis Villeneuve is almost universally regarded as one of the most talented filmmakers working today. He has a phenomenal filmography that has attracted widespread critical acclaim and generally commercial success as well. His movies are all thoughtful and superbly crafted, with interesting and nuanced characters, spectacular visuals, memorable production design that almost certainly has a Ken Adam influence, sensational sound, nail-biting suspense, and brilliant action, be it on a very small scale or the biggest one imaginable. Even the people who don't really like his movies can still acknowledge the craft and precision that goes into making them, and having a filmmaker of this caliber attached to Bond is a very, very good sign that Amazon are pulling out all the stops to make sure Bond 26 is a success. Since the announcement, a bit more news has trickled out indicating that Villeneuve doesn't have Final Cut privileges, but I don't think this should come as much of a surprise. No director has ever had Final Cut on a Bond movie, but generally they have all been given a lot of creative freedom in how they approach the movie. Villeneuve has very much earned his stripes as an auteur, and he would not have taken on this role at this stage of his career if he thought that he would have his creative vision for Bond shaped too heavily by the studio. So if he's not worried about not having Final Cut, then neither am I. But before we look at what Villeneuve means for Bond, I just want to quickly highlight another encouraging detail in the announcement, which was this comment by the head of Amazon MGM Studios. "We are honoured that Denis has agreed to direct James Bond's next chapter. He has delivered compelling worlds, dynamic visuals, complex characters, and, most importantly, the immersive storytelling that global audiences yearn to experience in theatres." This is yet another confirmation from Amazon themselves that they're very committed to giving Bond 26 a theatrical release, and I for one find it very reassuring that every public statement they have made about this movie so far has explicitly referenced that. But back to Villeneuve. Well, as we have seen, he has spoken about his love of the series many, many times over the years. And when asked about his favourite Bond movie, he always says this.
I will say that the Casino Royale, the first Daniel Craig movie, Bond, is still one of my favorites of all time, I will say, and Skyfall as well.
And I love those movies as well, especially Casino Royale, so if that is Villeneuve's template for Bond 26, then, well,
I'm all in.
But while Villeneuve is clearly a lifelong Bond fan, there aren't really any obvious signs of them in his filmography. And that's not to say he wasn't influenced by them, of course, it's just that compared to, say, Christopher's Nolan and McQuarrie, Villeneuve doesn't really lift things directly from the Bond movies. But then again, he did make Christopher Walken do this.
More, give me more.
More power!
But Villeneuve does have experience handling big blockbusters on the scale of Bond, and of taking on franchises that he himself had loved as a child. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter last year, he was asked a question that I think could very equally apply to him taking on James Bond. Blade Runner 2049 was the first time you played in someone else's cinematic sandbox. Were you ever able to ignore the shadow of Blade Runner? No, never. Blade Runner is one of my favourite films, and it's absolutely a masterpiece. I was constantly thinking about the original film as I was making Blade Runner 2049. It was impossible not to. So 2049 was really a love letter to the first film, but it was by far one of the most difficult projects I've ever done, and I don't think I will ever approach someone else's universe again. Notwithstanding the fact that by making Bond he is very much entering someone else's universe again, but I think this comment shows that he genuinely understands the responsibility any director takes on when they make something with a very strong cinematic legacy, and indeed he said as much in the Bond 26 announcement. Some of my earliest movie-going memories are connected to 007. I grew up watching James Bond films with my father, ever since Dr. No with Sean Connery. I'm a die-hard Bond fan. To me, he's sacred territory. I intend to honour the tradition and open the path for many new missions to come. This is a massive responsibility, but also incredibly exciting for me and a huge honour. I trust Villeneuve as a filmmaker and as a storyteller, and know that he understands the weight of responsibility that he has taken on with this assignment. So it gives me a lot of confidence that he has been chosen to lead Bond 26 and potentially beyond. So all of this is very positive, right? So why is my reaction to his appointment a fairly measured...
I have no objections.
And not, you know... Well, the first reason for my hesitation is just a logistical one. He's got a few other projects on the go right now, but he is about to start filming Dune Messiah, which theoretically means he's tied up until that comes out late next year. I didn't think Amazon would have wanted to wait that long to release Bond 26, but here we are. So hopefully we get some more clarity on this soon, but as it stands, and according to this article in Variety, we may not actually be getting Bond 26 until 2028, and just...
Can you go faster?
So that's one reason I'm slightly concerned about this announcement, but the other thing that gives me pause is, well, Villeneuve's filmography itself. As should be abundantly clear by now, I have enormous respect for him as a filmmaker. I've seen all of his English language films, and despite the fact that some of those are my favourite movies of the last 10 years or so, none of them are particularly Bond-like in either style or substance. His films have been either very personal character dramas or high-concept science fiction pieces, or in the case of my favourite Villeneuve film, both. I am sure he has a good spy movie in him, but based on the tone, style, and pacing of the movies he has made so far, I feel like that spy movie would be much more like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy than, well, Casino Royale. And to be clear, I love Tinker Tailor, it's just a very different style of spy movie to the Bond series.
Like Peking duck is different from Russian caviar, but I love them both.
And also, as beautiful as his movies are, they don't really have the glamour or style of the Bond films. His movies are all aesthetic, but in a gritty, industrial sort of way with trench coats and neon and metal and concrete. Or else they're overcast, understated and slightly desaturated like a Bourne movie, or, well, I guess, Spectre. And in a similar vein, his movies aren't, for lack of a better word, sexy. And by that, I'm not just talking about this sort of thing, I'm talking about this sort of thing as well. The Bond movies all have scenes that have hot people, men and women, being hot and checking each other out and flirting with each other and, well... So I'm happy for Villeneuve to prove me wrong on these points, and especially in the case of the sexiness, I think a lot of that will come down to the script itself. But so far, there's not really anything in his filmography that indicates he would give us a scene like this, or this, or this, or this. But while Villeneuve's style doesn't instinctively feel like a natural match with the Bond films, I take a quantum of solace from the fact that it does feel like a natural match with Fleming. The Bond novels are page-turning adventures, yes, but they're also deeply concerned with character. Bond's inner monologue with all of his frustrations, fears, and fantasies are a major part of those books, and I can absolutely see Villeneuve taking a lot of inspiration from them. And by that, I don't mean it'll be set in the 1960s, I mean that I think it will want to explore the nuances and contradictions inherent in the character of Bond, because more than anything else, that is what sets this series apart from any other franchise. Some of my all-time favourite Bond movies are the ones that explore and challenge Bond's identity and character, and I tend to push back on people who think that doing so is something the series only started doing when Daniel Craig came along. But Craig's Bond definitely went much, much further in exploring the humanity of Bond, and from the sounds of it, Villeneuve is likely to follow in that spirit because, as he has said many, many times, he is a fan of where Craig took the character. Like, here he is talking to 𝗙𝗩𝗘𝗥𝗧𝗏 Fukunaga about it.
And I think what Daniel brought, the layers of complexity, the vulnerability, especially an emotional vulnerability, which we hadn't seen. Now, having gone back through the novels, in preparation for this film, I saw that, Fleming had written some of that complexity already into the Bond character way back, in the initial stories. Daniel, I think, resurrected that complexity in his version of Bond.
I think I share totally your enthusiasm regarding what Daniel brought to the character. I mean, it's like it was a true revitalization. I mean, like a rebirth.
And as viewers of this channel will know, I'm a big defender of Craig's Bond, so I am thrilled to hear Villeneuve citing the likes of Casino Royale as his favourite Bond film, and being so open about his love of where those movies took the character.
What Daniel Craig brought to Bond is so unique and strong and probably unmatchable. I mean, it's like he's probably the ultimate James Bond.
But I will admit that a part of me did hope that this latest refresh of Bond would dial back on the seriousness a bit. I think one of the reasons the trailer for the 007 First Light video game resonated so much was because it seems to capture that sense of playfulness and adventure that a lot of Bond fans felt was missing from the later Craig movies. And with Villeneuve at the helm, well, I think any hopes anyone might have had of getting a milk chocolate Pierce Brosnan style Bond movies are melting faster than an ice palace in a space laser. And maybe this shouldn't come as a surprise. After all, Skyfall is the most successful Bond movie ever, and both Spectre and No Time to Die were very successful at the box office. So it makes total sense to me that Amazon would not want to change up that approach too much because it is clearly popular with general audiences, even if all we Bond fans really want is for this guy to come back. But while I think a lot of people will be looking at Skyfall as the template for Villeneuve's Bond because of 𝗩𝗘𝗥𝗧𝗛𝗪𝗓, and because it shares a cinematographer with Blade Runner, and because it marked the point at which the Bond films started to build themselves a more prestige reputation, and because Villeneuve has said that he likes the Daniel Craig movies, I actually think that From Russia with Love is the movie in the Bond series that is the closest match to Villeneuve's style. He likes realism and ambience and silence, and relies heavily on visual storytelling, with a focus on creating tension and drama by exploring characters and their relationships. And while we know he is a very good director of action, where he excels is in creating suspense, which is something that was part of the Bond series long before the big stunts came along with Roger Moore. So maybe Villeneuve does want to take the series right back to its roots and make something that's a spy and espionage movie first and an action movie second. Less dual-wielding machine guns and more quietly assassinating someone from the shadows. Well, if that's his plan, then I'm all in. But like everything in life, there needs to be a balance. And when I think about all of those movies I mentioned before that explore Bond's character, they are my favorites because the drama is set alongside big, exciting action scenes, interesting supporting characters, a thrilling story, lots of humor, some globe-trotting action, and it was all wrapped up in a movie that could be enjoyed by the whole family. My main concern with Villeneuve leading Bond 26 is that he wouldn't strike this balance. Like, as great as he is at directing action, I just cannot see him doing something like the Cuba sequence, or the train fight, or the parkour chase, or the bike chase, or the tank scene, or any of the other big, bombastic, and slightly silly action scenes that have defined the Bond series for decades. Even the movies like Skyfall that have a reputation for being overly serious still take a moment to give a little wink to the audience as if to say, yeah, it's a Bond movie, what did you expect? Based on the movies he has made so far, that is not something I can really see Villeneuve doing. Because of all the many, many adjectives that I could use to describe Villeneuve's films, beautiful, thoughtful, nuanced, atmospheric, precise, sophisticated, suspenseful, epic, the word that never springs to mind is fun. And I think that is the most important quality for a Bond movie to have. But again, I hope that he will prove me wrong, and I am more than willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because Denis Villeneuve has more than earned my trust as a filmmaker. The fact that Casino Royale is his favourite Bond movie is music to my ears. He has proven that he understands Bond, he knows what it is people love about these movies, and he has obviously been dreaming about this for a very, very long time. I am confident that he will do justice to the legacy of Bond while also setting down a very strong new vision for the future of the series. And the most exciting thing for me is the thought that, with Denis Villeneuve as director, Bond 26 will be a Bond movie unlike any of the others. Because I don't want another Daniel Craig movie, but I also don't want another Pierce Brosnan movie. I want a insert actor name here Bond movie. We don't want Bond 26 to be the 007 equivalent of The Force Awakens. We want the Bond series to keep changing and growing like it always has, and with someone like Denis Villeneuve leading the next chapter, I'm confident he's going to give us a take on Bond that we have never seen before, and one that will definitively launch us into the next era of James Bond. And whether I end up liking it or not, I cannot be more excited for it. I just really hope it comes out before 2028.
Someone's in a hurry.
Oh, and just quickly, since this bit of news dropped the day after the announcement of Villeneuve, do not cast Tom Holland as James Bond. I don't normally engage with Bond casting speculation on principle because it's almost always just clickbait nonsense, but still, just no. I have nothing against Tom Holland, it's just that the Bond actor cannot and should not be a household name, and definitely not one already associated with another global franchise.
You're sensitive, Mr. Bond.
About certain things, yes.
I hope Villeneuve understands this, and while I'm sure Amazon have a wish list, Villeneuve has an excellent track record with casting, so I'm confident he'll play an active role in the process of choosing the next 007, so let's just wait and see. But again, let's not wait too long.
I'll give you 20,000 baht if you can make this heap go any faster.
Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are on Villeneuve and Bond 26 in the comments below, and if you want to know how the Bond series got to this point in the first place, with Amazon taking over creative control from Eon Productions, then you should watch my 2-part series looking at the crazy history of James Bond through the lens of Thunderball, Never Say Never Again, and Spectre. And in case you missed it, you can also watch my unscripted and on-camera reaction to the 007 First Light trailer over on my Patreon page. That video is free for anyone to watch, but there are also several exclusive videos over there just for patrons, including my ranking of all 25 Eon Bond movies. Thanks for watching, and as always, Pentex's James Bond video essays will return.